All right, I will say good morning. Good morning. Let us begin a good Chodesh. So beautiful, Baruch Hashem, to be able to continue to learn together. Begin by thanking all of our sponsors for this year. To thank our Talmud Torah sponsors for the month of Kislev. Haba Aleinu Latova, Josh and Becca Friedman, Le'ilui Nishmas, Josh's father, Yisra Yehuda Ben Harav Chaim Rafael. To thank Semi and Malka Esterson for dedicating the shiurim this month in memory of their parents, Yitzchak Leib Ben haKohen, Sarah Rachel Bas Avraham, and Hinda Bas Henoch Efraim, as well as in honor of their father, Mr. Morton Esterson, for continued good health and nachas from his mishpacha. The new Talmud Torah sponsor, Baruch Hashem, for Kislev, the Pepper family, in commemoration of the yahrzeit of Yosef Pepper, Yosef Dovid Ben Yaakov. We thank our Daf Yomi sponsors. Today, Mrs. Rosalie Sklar and family, in commemoration of the 19th yahrzeit of her beloved husband, Dr. Mansfred Sklar. We hope that in the merit of our Talmud Torah, all of the neshamas have an aliyah, and the family's ein nechama. With that, let us begin. We have a lot to do today, Baruch Hashem, a really beautiful daf ahead of us. Today's daf is Lamed Aleph, 31. And we are picking up in Yosef Hashem at the Mishnah on the top of Lamed Aleph, on the top of 31. And the Mishnah says as follows. Hanoda Mishov Se Shabbos. Very interesting case. Let's say one takes a neder that they will not get any benefit from people who observe Shabbos, Sabbath observant individuals. Okay. Asr b'Yisrael, v'asr b'kusim. They are prohibited to get benefit from Jews and also from kusim. Also remember again, I think I mention this all the time, there's not a masechta that goes by, at least I feel there's not a masechta that goes by, that the kusim are not mentioned. Remember again, the kusim were a foreign nation of people from the country of Kusa, who were resettled in Eretz Yisrael by Shalmaneser, the king of Ashur. So the same king who was responsible for the exile of the 10 tribes ultimately goes ahead and resettles. His strategy was to uproot people from their indigenous lands, thereby avoid the possibility of rebellion. So the Kusim were resettled in the north of Eretz Yisrael, and there was an outbreak of lions because of their idolatrous practices. They end up going ahead and converting. But they were found to still be worshipping idolatry. So there's a whole discussion as to whether or not their conversion was legitimate. So the Gemara says, if a person says, I'm not going to get benefit from Shomer Shabbos people, from Sabbath observers, he can't get benefit from Jews or from Kusim. Me'ochle shum. So what about, again, he makes a neder, I'm not going to get any benefit from people who eat garlic. And we'll say, what's that? What's that? So it's actually very interesting. If you look at Rashi on the right-hand side, on the right is Me'ochle shum b'leilei Shabbos. Ultimately, we're talking about people who eat garlic on Erev Shabbos or Friday night. Now, why? What's the pshat? It's very interesting. Right, if you look at Rashi, he says, Asr b'Yisrael, Rashi says, the Yisraelin regilin le'echol shum, mipnei ona, shemekayim me'erev Shabbos li Erev Shabbos. Umar b'lahem azera, ki da'amar asher pirio yitain be'ito. So apparently now, remember again, we know back from our Ksufas days, that the owner of the Talmud Chacham, right, the conjugal obligation that the Talmud Chacham has is once a week, and specifically, again, it's to be fulfilled on Friday night, on Shabbos night. So it seems to be that garlic was considered to be like a male stimulant, and therefore, again, there was a concept to eat garlic on Erev Shabbos, so that a man should have koach to fulfill his obligation of ona. So let's say a person goes ahead and says, I take a neder not to get benefit from anyone who eats garlic. Asr b'Yisrael v'asr b'kusim. Once again, he's not allowed to get benefit from Jews. He's also not allowed to get benefit from kusim. Me'ole Yerushalayim. Let's say I take a neder not to get benefit from anyone who goes ahead and is ola regel, goes to Yerushalayim. Then what's the halacha? Asr b'Yisrael u'muter b'kusim. Such a person is prohibited to get benefit from a Jew, but not prohibited to get benefit ultimately again from a kusim, Okay, so let's analyze what I'll say. Says the Gemara, My Shov Se Shabbos. Now, what does it mean? Let's go back to the first neder in the Mishnah. I take a neder, I'm not going to get benefit from anyone who's Shomer Shabbos. What does that mean? Actually, the truth is, I should. Shov Se Shabbos means those who rest on Shabbos. I won't get benefit from anyone who rests on Shabbos. So what's the pshat? So the Gemara says, Ilema mimekayme Shabbos If it refers to anyone who observes, as I use the wrong word, anyone who observes Shabbos, then might you have a kusim. Afilu ovdei kochavim nami. Well, say, let's say you have a non-Jew who observes Shabbos. Right? So again, if I make a neder to not get benefit from anyone who observes Shabbos, then that neder should devolve upon who? Anyone who observes Shabbos. Whether the person is Jewish, whether the person is a kusi, whether the person is not Jewish. Halacha l'maaseh should be prohibited. Ella, so the Gemara says, Ella mimitzuvim al ha-Shabbos. No. What it's referring to, the neder really means is, I hereby prohibit myself from getting benefit from anyone who is obligated to observe Shabbos. Okay. Ihachi. So, okay, and I will say, in that case, then the Mishnah makes sense. Why does the Mishnah make sense? Because I can't get benefit from Jews. I also can't get benefit from who? From Kusim. Because Kusim are also obligated to keep Shabbos. Whether they do or not is a different discussion. But the Lamaisa, they're obligated to keep Shabbos. Therefore, the neder devolves upon those two groups, but will not devolve upon non-Jews who are not obligated to keep Shabbos. Here's the problem. Ihachi, Amos Sefer, look at the end of the Mishnah. Me ole Yerushalayim. Let's remember again, what was the last case? I take a neder not to get benefit from anyone who's ole Yerushalayim. So I'll say ole Yerushalayim means those who are obligated to ascend to Yerushalayim. Now what's the halacha? Asr bi Yisrael umuter bekusim. So again, I'm not permitted to get benefit from Jews, but I am permitted to get benefit from kusim. But how does that make sense? Am I b'hamitzuvim minu? I understand kusim are obligated in aliyah l'regel as well. Right? The kusi converted, which means that he's obligated in Taryag mitzvos, which means ultimately that he's obligated in the mitzvah of aliyah l'regel, of going up to Yerushalayim 3 times a year, during Pesach, Shavuos, and Sukkot. If that's the case, that the way we're interpreting the Mishnah, let's say, so again, when I said, I take a neder not to get benefit from Shofsei Shabbos, and Shofsei Shabbos refers to those who are commanded to observe Shabbos. Therefore, the Mishnah paskins, I can't get benefit from Jews or from Kusim, using that same metric, using that same parameter. The last case, I take a neder not to get benefit from Ole Yerushalayim. The Mishnah says you can't get benefit from Jews, but you can get benefit from Kusim. But why? I should interpret this neder the same way, that I can't get benefit from anyone who's obligated to go up to Yerushalayim. Who's obligated to go up to Yerushalayim? Jews and Kusim alike. To which the Gemara says, Amar Abaye, mitzvah va'osek katani. But so listen to this. Abaye says, actually, what these Nedarim mean, they refer to people who are both commanded and observe. Commanded and observe. So listen to this. Betarti bavi kamaiso. In the first 2 cases, Yisrael v'kusim mitzuvim va'osim ovdei kochavim hahu da'avdi osin ve'inon mitzuvim. So I'll say, so for example, in the first case of Shabbos and the second case of garlic, so to speak, these are cases ultimately again where Jews and Kusim are both obligated as well as what? As well as they observe. They observe. Now obviously again, the garlic case is not exactly like the Shabbos case, but you understand what the Mishnah is saying. So right, they're both cases where they're mitzvah, so commanded, and they observe. And those are both cases where even if a non-Jew observes Shabbos, or eats garlic on Erev Shabbos, maybe he does it, he's oseh, but he's not what? He's not mitzvah. He's not commanded. However, ba'olei Yerushalayim, Yisrael mitzvah va'osim, kusim mitzvah ve'ein osim. In the case of olei Yerushalayim, ultimately again, the reality was, you're right, both Jews and Kusim are commanded, but only Jews observed that halacha. Kusim apparently did not observe aliyah l'regel. So I will say, so therefore Abaye says like this, that whenever you make one of these Nedarim, they cover groups who are mitzvah va'oseh. They're commanded and they perform this mitzvah. So now we can go through the Mishnah. So I make a neder not to get benefit from anyone who keeps Shabbos. So I'll say, who does that cover? Jews and Kusim. Right? Why? Because both of those groups are commanded and observed. Who does it exclude? Non-Jews. Why? Because even if they observe, they're what? Not commanded. I take a neder not to get benefit from anyone who eats garlic. Who does it cover? Jews and Kusim. Why? They're quote-unquote commanded. I don't know, it's not literally commanded, but you understand. They're commanded and observe. Ultimately, again, who does it exclude? Non-Jews. Why? Because even if they observe, they're not commanded. Last case, I take a neder not to get benefit from anyone who is ola regel. So we'll say, who does it include? Jews. Why? Because they're commanded and they perform it. Who does it exclude? Kusim, right, because why? They're commanded but they don't do it. Non-Jews, ultimately, again, because they're not commanded and they don't do it. Okay, fascinating Mishnah. Konim Sheninena Lebnei Noach. Suppose say these are great cases. So I take a neder that I'm not going to get any benefit from Bnei Noach, children of Noach. So what's the halacha? I am permitted to get benefit from Jews, not permitted to get benefit from non-Jews. So apparently that neder prohibits me from getting benefits from non-Jews. I asks the Gemara, but why? We're also Bnei Noach, right? We descend from Shem, the son of Noach. So I don't understand why wouldn't Jews be included. That was incredible. Kevan de ikdish Avraham iskiru al shemei. I say this is so beautiful. Once Avraham Avinu was literally translated, once Avraham Avinu became holy, right? Once Avraham Avinu became hekdish, then ultimately again we are considered to be his descendants and no longer considered to be the descendants of Noach. So an incredible idea. And I will say, now understand also what's driving all of this. Remember, the guiding light in Nedarim is how do you interpret a neder? In general, how do you interpret a neder? Acharei, right? Acharei lashon mani adam holkin Nedarim, right? Oh, Nedarim holk acharei lashon mani adam. Nedarim are interpreted in the way that people colloquially speak. So now what the Gemara is also saying over here is that when people refer to Bnei Noach, they are referring to non-Jews, they're not referring to Jews. Fascinating. Weiter. So listen to this. So I'll say, Mishnah, Sha'eni nene lezera Avram. Let's say I take a neder. I'm not going to get any benefit from the offspring of Avraham Avinu. What's the halacha? Asr b'Yisrael, u'muter ba'ovdei kochavim. I am not permitted to get benefit from Jews. I am permitted to get benefit from non-Jews. So the Gemara says, 1 second. Vayki Yishma. 1 second. How can you get benefit from non-Jews? Avraham Avinu has 2 sons, Yitzchak and Yishmael. Yishmael's children, why, right? Those also come from Avraham Avinu. So why am I permitted to get benefit from them? 2 verses is incredible. The passage says, Ki bi Yitzchak yikari l'chazara. HaKadosh Baruch Hu says to Avraham, your offspring will come from Yitzchak. Meaning that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is saying, as much as Avraham Avinu has 2 sons, only one of those sons is going to be eternally known as the son of Avraham Avinu, and that is Yitzchak. Esav. Okay, fine. So even if we're going to go with that idea, so therefore again, Yitzchak is called the son of Avraham. Yishmael is not called the son of Avraham. Fine. So we'll say, so therefore again, when I make a neder to not get benefit from the offspring of Avraham, that only covers Jews, not non-Jews. But here's the problem. Yitzchak also has 2 sons. I will say, rather incredible. This week's parsha, what Italian. This week's parsha, Yitzchak has Yaakov and Esav. And from Esav, so I will say, from Yishmael, there's one nation. Right? There's one nation. Right? So ultimately, from Esav comes all of the other nations. So, well, not all of the other nations, but many of the other nations. So if I take a neder not to get benefit from the offspring of Avraham Avinu, how am I permitted to get offspring at least from the non-Jewish nations that come from Esav? To which the Gemara, listen to this: Be Yitzchak v'lo kol Yitzchak. Actually, quite fascinating. So the Torah tells us that Torah tells Avraham Avinu that through Yitzchak will be your offspring, but Be Yitzchak means some of Yitzchak, not all of Yitzchak. In other words, that the line of Avraham Avinu continues from Yitzchak, right, from Avram to Yitzchak, through Yaakov, and not through Esav. The same way that it doesn't channel through Yishmael, it doesn't channel through Esav as well. Okay, good. So therefore, both sides, Allah L'maisa, a person says, I'm not going to get benefit from the offspring of Avram Avinu. They are also to get benefit from Jews, not also to get benefit from non-Jews. Incredible. So we'll say Mishnah. She'eni nana mi Yisrael. So we'll say this is actually an interesting case. So now we're transitioning a little bit. Sorry. She'eni nana mi Yisrael. We'll say, listen to this case. I make a neder that I'm not going to get benefit from a Yisrael. That's my neder. I'm not going to get benefit from a Yisrael. So we'll say, now the Mishnah is kind of, you see, up until now we've been focusing on who's covered by these type of nedarim. Now we're transitioning a little bit and trying to figure out the actual impact of these nedarim. So I make a neder, I'm not going to get benefit from Esau. So Moses, remember again, what does that automatically mean? What does it automatically mean? Or what does it automatically impact? My ability to do business. Right? That's going to be the first, right? We're Jews, right? That's going to be the first thing it impacts my ability to do business. So I say, now I make a neder. So let's play this out. I normally do business with Ruvain, but I made a neder not to benefit from Jews. So is there some way for me to transact business with Ruvain? The Mishnah says yes. What can you do? Lokeach biyoser umocher bepachos. So I'll say, I can go ahead and overpay, right? Overpay. So in other words, if I'm buying something from Ruvain, I can overpay for it. Or if I'm selling something to Ruvain, I can sell it for less than its market value. Why did I say? Because if I overpay and undersell, then what? I'm not benefiting. So there is a way, and it's actually very interesting, there is a way to move merchandise, even if halacha l'maisa, I am restricted under this neder. There still is this possibility. So the Gemara goes weiter. Right. So Yisrael menenli. Let's say I take a neder prohibiting any Jews from getting benefit from me. So what do I do in that case? Yisrael menenli. So in that case, I will say. So now remember, it's reversed. So no Jew is permitted to get benefit from me. Lokeach bepachos. So I can buy from them, right, for under market value, therefore they're not getting benefiting from me. Umocher biyoser, and I can sell to them in an overpriced way. So Rabbi says it's the same thing, just reversed. Ve'ein shomelo. But by the way, Rabbi says it's actually very interesting. But the Mishnah says, by the way, good luck with that, because no one's going to want to do business with you. Right? In other words, ein shomelo means practically, this is not going to happen in the marketplace. Because if you take a neder that no one's allowed to benefit from you, then the only way you're allowed to transact business is if you sell over market, right? Or you buy from under market and you sell for over market. So in Shomelo just means practically it's not going to play out. Shomelo is so interesting, by the way, that the Mishnah chooses to go ahead and say that. David and I were speaking, yesterday after the shir, that so many of the cases in the Gemara are not practical cases. And that's okay. The Gemara's job is not to come up with practical cases. Sometimes the challenge or the goal of the Gemara is to go and actually create hyperbolic cases in order to go ahead and make a point. Okay, interesting. In Shomelo, she'eni nena lahen vehein li yana. So we'll say ultimately again, I'm sorry. She'eni nena lahen vehein li. So we'll say if I make a neder that I can't get benefit from Jews and Jews can't benefit from me, so fine. So we'll say in that case again, we've pretty much precluded all benefit. You can go ahead and still get benefit from non-Jews. Incredible. Fine. So it says in the Gemara, Amr Shmuel. So we'll say this is actually quite interesting. Halokeach kli mina uman levakro v'ne'enas. We'll say, listen to this case. I go ahead and I pick up a utensil to look at it. So I'm shopping for a utensil, right? I go ahead and I pick up a utensil. Imagine I go to the potter. I lift up a jug to go ahead and look at it, and then what happens? It falls out of my hands. And it breaks. What's the halacha? So halokeach kli mina uman levakro v'ne'enas, and then an ones occurs. What's the halacha? So v'ne'enas bi'ado chayiv. Ultimately, again, I am chayiv. Sorry, I am chayiv for that. So we'll say, I am completely obligated to pay the full value. We'll say, which, by the way, I just want to point out, just contemporarily, this applies. You go into a store to look at something. You pick up the item, you drop the item, and you break it. Halacha says the person who picked it up, is fully responsible to pay for that item. So the Gemara says, you see something very interesting from here, which is, Alma, Kasavar, Hanaas Lokeachi. Rabbi will say, what do you see? That literally, again, the object, or the picking up of the object, is considered to be the sole benefit of the purchaser. Now, we'll say, what does that mean practically? So we'll say, if you take a look at Rashi for just a moment. So Rashi is on the right-hand side. This is the first wide line in Rashi. Alma hanaas lokeachi, da'ana lokeach memekcho, yoser mishal mocher. Hilchach chayiv digamar umakni nafshei bahiyana shemaniach levakro v'havi. Actually, it's changed over here in that little letter vav. V'havi kishoel v'nischayiv ba'onsin. So Rabbi said, it's actually very interesting. So let me just tell you this outside for just a moment. The halacha is as follows. Dalchas falls. When you pick up an object, right? When I'm in a store and I pick up an object, in that moment when I pick up an object, what's the relationship between me and the seller? What's the relationship? The relationship is the seller essentially communicates to me, right? If you want it, it's yours. If you want it, it's yours. Shabbosai, essentially then, I, the purchaser, have all of the power. I have all of the power. I have complete rights in that entity. Because I have complete rights in that entity, essentially, when I'm holding it, I am like a shoel. I'm like a borrower. Now, we know that in halacha, there are different custodial relationships, right? There's a shomer chinam, an unpaid watchman, a shomer sachar, a paid watchman, a socher, a renter, and a shoel, a borrower. Depending on the level of custodial relationship, determines or dictates your level of liability if something happens to the object. The highest level is a shoel, is a borrower. A borrower is considered to be kol hana shelo, since he has all the benefit. So when you have all the benefit, you also have what? You also have what? All the responsibility. Therefore, a borrower is responsible for everything, which means geneva, the item stolen, aveda, the items lost, and ones, some extenuating circumstance occurs to the object. So therefore, I'm holding the object, somebody bumps into me. I drop it, because again, I have like full power over this object. In that, the seller stands ready to sell it to me. Therefore, in halacha, I become like a shor, like a borrower, and therefore I have complete liability for the object. Incredible. So the Gemara says, Tanan, well, let's analyze that for just a little bit. She'eni nana mi Yisrael. Remember, the case in the Mishnah Bosei where we said, I take an edra, I'm not going to get any benefit from Jews. What's the halacha? Bocher bepachos. I'm allowed to go ahead and sell my products for under market. The Rebbe say again, why? Because if I sell it for less, then the mice I'm not benefiting. Aval shava b'shavalo. And here's what's interesting. I can sell it for less than market. Rebbe say, what can't I do? I can't sell it at market. In other words, let's say you just want to sell it to cover cost without making a profit. It sounds like you can't do that. Vihanas lokeachi. So again, I don't understand. If we say that ultimately again, when the purchaser picks up the object, he's the one who has complete hana, then ultimately, again, afilu shava b'shava, that I should be able to go ahead and sell it at cost, because that's not considered to be benefit to me, the seller. To which the Gemara says, you're right, masnisim bizavina derami alapay. The truth is, the Mishnah is talking about a case, so I'll say literally, zvina derami alapay means a sale that's turned on its face. Now, what does that mean? Again, take a look at Rashi in the wide lines, not the widest lines, the intermediate lines, about 3, 6, about 7 lines in. We're talking about an item, Rabbi say, merchandise that's hard to sell. Hard to sell merchandise. It's not moving. So I'll say when it comes to hard to sell merchandise, even selling at cost is considered to be a win for the seller. As such, that'll be considered hana. Therefore, the only way to avoid me, the seller, getting hana and therefore being in violation of my neder is to sell it under market. Imkain, if that's the case, emareisha. Look at the first part of the Mishnah. Lokeach biyoser. You can purchase it for more. Va'od ema seifa she'yisrael nanim. They're both saying the last case in the Mishnah, where I take a neder, ultimately again that a Jew is not permitted to get benefit from me. What's the halacha? You're allowed to undersell, or I should say, purchase for under market and ultimately sell for over market. And if we're talking about a merchandise that you can't move, hard to move merchandise, afilu shava b'shava, even again selling it for the equal amount should be permitted as well. To which the Gemara says, you're right, seifa b'zvina charifa. So ultimately we'll say, here's what's interesting. The Reish and the Sefer are talking about two different types of merchandise. The Reish is talking about hard to sell merchandise. So I'll say, Seifa, so Zvina Charifa means what? I will say, literally again, hot merchandise. That doesn't mean merchandise being sold off the back of a truck, right, in an alley, right? But rather, again, I will say, it means hot merchandise means merchandise. By the way, this is not much like a Black Friday tie-in over here, right? Right. Merchandise that's just got to go. It's got to be sold. It's got to be sold. So the Gemara starts, I should say, it's easily sold. Ihachi, lokeach bepachos. If that's the case, then ultimately, again, why could it be purchased under market? Afilu shal b'shaveh. Even for a cost should be permitted. Ella masnisin, Ella masnisin Bizavina Metzia. Rather, Rabbi say what you have to say is that our Mishnah is talking about, Rabbi say, literally like middle of the road merchandise. What's middle of the road merchandise? It's not overly difficult to sell, but it also doesn't sell itself. Udishmuel bezvina charifa. So let's listen to this. Udishmuel bezvina charifa. Tanya kavasi. I'm sorry. Udishmuel bezvina charifa. Tanya kavasi dishmuel. So what's the right side supports Shmuel? Halokeach kelim min atagar. So it's very interesting. So remember again. So here's what we have. So remember again. Shmuel. We'll say just to orient ourselves. Shmuel was the one who said that ultimately, again, when a purchaser picks up an object, he is considered to be a shoel, a borrower, and therefore responsible for anything that happens to that object. Or both say, in other words, otherwise stated, kol hana'ah shelo. The complete benefit ultimately accrues to him. So the Gemara says, Tanya Kavasi de Shmuel. So what's the second line now from the top? 31b. We have a brayso that supports Shmuel. It's so interesting. Halokeach kelim min hatagar l'shagar l'beis chamos. We're switching gears now, leaving the Mishnah now for a little bit. So listen to this. Halokeach kelim min hatagar l'shagar l'beis chamos. Well, so here's what I want to do. I'm purchasing objects, purchasing utensils purchasing items from the merchant. L'shagran l'beis chamav. They will say, for what purpose? To send it to my father-in-law's house. I want to send gifts to my in-laws. That's what I want to do. Okay. V'amarlo, and I say to the merchant, Im mikablim osam mimeni ani nosi lecha d'meyan. If my in-laws accept the gifts, then I'll pay you for it. Ve'im lav eini nosi lecha lefi tavas hana. Right? So Shabbat. And if not, I'll pay you for tavas hana. So here's what's going on over here. Now remember again, essentially what I'm saying is like this. I don't know if my in-laws are going to accept it or not. So I'm not paying you now. If they accept it, I'll pay you. I'll pay you, right? Whatever price we negotiate on. If they don't accept it, I'm going to return the objects. I'm going to pay you for tavas hana. So what does mean tavas hana? So we'll say, when you offer to give someone a gift, even if they don't accept the gift, there's what? There's goodwill. There's goodwill that's created. Goodwill has a value. They will say, by the way, you could see this, right? Sometimes again on a company's balance sheet, right? You'll find goodwill. It's interesting, right? Goodwill. So there's a concept like this that goodwill itself can be quantified, And so here, again, my in-laws like me. Nes nigla, right? It's kislev, right? Incredible things happen, right? Right? So now what happens? Like my in-laws like me. So now, again, there's a value to that. So let's say I say to Reuven the merchant, if my in-laws accept the gift, of course I'll pay you. If they don't accept it, I'm going to repay it, but of course I'm going to pay you for the goodwill that I was able to get from your merchandise. Okay, beautiful, good. Now what happens? So Nansu. So we'll say, of course, what occurs? Something happens to the gifts on the way to my in-laws, right? The wagon turns over, and everything breaks. Ones, extenuating circumstance. So what's talaka? So what's the shaila? Am I liable for the full amount of the merchandise? So this is interesting. It depends. Bahalicha chayiv. So we'll say if the ones happened when the gifts were being transported to my in-laws, then what? I'm fully responsible. Which makes sense because at that time I stood ready to what? Purchase and pay the whole thing. So if something happens on the way, I'm chayiv, right? The chazara pater. Interestingly enough, on the way back, I'm pater. I will say now why. Listen to this. So on the way back, remember again, if the merchandise is on the way back, what does that mean? My in-laws didn't take it. So I'll say at that point, what's my responsibility towards the merchandise? Mipnei kinose sachar. I'm a shomer sachar. I have the halachic status of a paid custodian. Now I will say, what is a paid custodian responsible for? Geneva, theft, aveda, object loss. What is a paid custodian exempt for? Ones. So on the way back, since I'm not purchasing it now, but again, and it's clear, I'll say that's what we set up, that I'm not purchasing, but halacha l'maisa, I said I'm going to pay for tovas hana. In other words, we quantified what I'm going to pay for. I'm a shomer sachar. I'm a paid custodian for the merchandise, and therefore halacha l'maisa, I'm exempt for onsin. Incredible. So the Gemara tells a story. Hahu safsira the shakal chamra lezabunin. So we'll say there was a safsira. Safsira is also like a merchant. The Rashi says over here, Mishal okech behema amanas lemolcha lealtar. So we'll say, so this is like, I don't know what the technical term for it. What is it? A third party, yeah. So what I do is, what this guy will call, what I do is, I go ahead and I take merchandise from the wholesaler, right? Essentially, I take it on credit. My goal is to go ahead and sell it, and when I sell it, I pay the wholesaler for it, and of course, there's profits from me in there. Okay, so that's the safsira. So what happened? Hahu safsira yishakal chamra lezabune. So there was a safsira who took a donkey to go ahead and sell it. Velo isbin didn't end up selling it. Right? So I bought the donkey. Right? I didn't buy it. I took the donkey on credit. The intention was to go ahead and sell it. I don't end up selling it. So what happened? Bahadi dahadar isnis chamra. So on the way back, what happens? Never. The donkey had a heart attack. Right? So the donkey had a heart attack. Right? The donkey is no more. Okay. So we'll say now. Remember. Now this is where I'm coming back. So what's the halacha? Chaybe Rav Nachman l'shalume. Rav Nachman obligated the safsira to pay full price. Now this is interesting. Because based on what we just said before, right? On the way back, what should be the halacha? You're like a shomer sachar. Says the Gemara, 1 second. Esir ala Rav Nachman. So Rav said Rav Nachman, 1 second. Nensu bahalicha chay b'chazara patra. 1 second. How does this stem with the in-law case? Remember again, I take the merchandise to give to my in-laws. I say, if something happens on the way there where I stand ready to pay for the whole thing, I'm like a shor, like a borrower, and therefore chayiv. But if my in-laws didn't accept the gift and I was on the way back, as much as I contracted to pay for Tovas Hana, the goodwill that I got, I'm only like a paid custodian. And therefore, again, not chayiv for extenuating circumstances. Why isn't the Safsira case the same thing? He took the donkey to market to pay for it. Ultimately, again, to sell it. He wasn't able to sell it. He's now bringing it back. It dies on the way back. Ones. So why don't we say the same thing? The Safsira should be pater for Onsin because he's only like a Shomer Sacha, like a paid custodian. To which the Gemara says, this is incredible. The Gemara says, so Amrale, Rav Nachman responds back, Chazar de Safsira holachi. I will say, the Chazara and holacha, the going there and coming back, doesn't apply to a guy like a Safsira. Why not? So I will say because if the Safsira were to find someone to sell the donkey to, even on the threshold of his own home, would he not sell it? So I will say, so essentially if Safsira operates differently, when I take that donkey on credit, what's my goal? Sell it. Where should I sell it? Anywhere I can. Now obviously I'm going to the market because that's the highest probability. But again, it's also possible you meet someone on the street. Is that donkey for sale? Of course. So I'll say, so the nature of a safsira is that as long as he has it, he retains the full possibility of selling it, which means that he takes on the identity as a shoel, as a borrower the entire time. Contrast that with the case of the gift. So we'll say, by the gifts, what happens? My intention is to give it to who? Right? My in-laws. If my in-laws reject it, am I giving it to anyone else? No. So therefore, once they reject it, by definition, I transform from a shul, from a borrower, into a paid custodian, and therefore something happens to it on the way back. If it is an ones, I'm not going to be chayiv for that. Incredible. I will say new Mishnah. I will say now, we're going to get into some really incredibly beautiful sugis. Agadata. We've waited a long time for Agadata. Shabbos is Daf, I will say, which is going to be absolutely riveting, overwhelming, magnificent, and beautiful. It's going to be a lot of Agadata. Well, not Agadata, but drashas, beautiful Gemaras. So we'll say, let's go. Mishnah. Konam she'ani nene la'arelim. So let's say I make a neder that I'm not going to get benefit from anyone uncircumcised. From Arelim. So what's the halacha? Mutter be'er Yisrael. V'asr b'moli ovdei kohavim. It's very interesting. I cannot get benefit. Mutter be'er Yisrael. So ultimately, again, I can get benefit from uncircumcised Jews, right? Ultimately, again, v'asr b'moli ovdei kohavim. But I can't get benefit from circumcised non-Jews. Now, we'll say, essentially what that means is what? When you use the lashon arel colloquially refers to non-Jews. it doesn't actually refer to someone who has a circumcision versus someone who doesn't have a circumcision. So, for example, when you make the neder to go ahead and not get benefit from Arelim, you can get benefits from all Jews, even if someone is not circumcised. But conversely, you can't get benefit from non-Jews, even if you have a non-Jew who is circumcised. Very interesting. She'eni nene lemulim. So let's say I take a neder, I'm not going to get benefit from anyone who's circumcised. Aser be'er Yisrael. So we'll say you cannot get benefit even from uncircumcised Jews. Umuter b'molei odei kochavim. But you can get benefit from circumcised non-Jews. Why? She'ein ha'arla kruya ela l'shem odei kochavim. So we'll say here the Mishnah says it. Because the terms arelim and mulim do not refer to physical realities. Rather, what do they refer to? Groups of people. So an arel refers to non-Jews. Mulim refers to Jews. So therefore, again, you take a neder not to get benefit from Arelim. You can get benefit from any Jew, even if he is uncircumcised. Conversely, you can't get benefit from any non-Jew, even if he is circumcised. You take a neder not to get benefit from Mulim, circumcised people. So the Maisa that prohibits you from getting benefit from any Jew, whether or not he's circumcised, and permitted to get benefit from Jews, even if they're not circumcised. Okay, so the Gemara says as follows. The Gemara quotes Psukim Shnei Amar Ki Kol Hagoyim Arelim V'Chol Beis Yisrael Erelev. Right? Literally, again, so we'll say, what do you see? All of the non-Jews Kol Hagoyim Arelim. All the nations of the world are called Arelim. V'Omer V'Haya HaPlishti HaOrel Hazeh by David HaMelech and Goliath. Right? This Philistine who's in Orel. I will say David HaMelech. Rashi says David HaMelech had no idea whether Goliath had a bris or didn't have a bris. But again, that's the term that's used ultimately to refer to a non-Jew. V'omer, pen tismechena benos plishtim, pen ta'alozna benos ha'arelim. Elazar ben Azariah Omer, so we'll say, so now, this is going to lead us into the sugya of bris milah. Elazar ben Azariah says, Mo'usehia arla, shenes ganu barishay. But said the arla, the foreskin is something that is repulsive, because we'll say, interestingly enough, the arla, the foreskin, is used to represent something degrading. Right? So you see, arla refers to something degrading. It's Banu Barusham Shneimar, Ki Kol HaGoyim Arelim. So we'll say, what Yosef ben Azariah is saying is, the fact, see, in this context, when it says all the Goyim, all the nations are Arelim, that's used as a derogatory term. So that tells you that there's something derogatory itself about the Arla. So Rabbi Shmuel Omer Gedola Milah, so Rabbi Shmuel switches this into the positive. He says, well, so this great is Bris Milah, Shenichras Valash Loshes Rebrisos. It will say there are 13 covenants that were made around Bris Milah. We'll see again what those 13 covenants were. Rabbi Yossi says, is Gedola Milah, Shedoches HaShabbos. Bris Milah is so great that it's even Doche Shabbos. So we'll say, we know this halacha. The Torah says, the Ran quotes, Pasuk says, Ubayom hashmini yimal b'sa'ar laso. On the 8th day you do the bris. And the Gemara dashes, on the 8th day, afilu b'Shabbos. Even though, again, milah involves malacha. Because cutting the foreskin causes bleeding. Causing bleeding on Shabbos is a problem of shechita, is a problem of slaughtering, right? Anytime you cause bleeding. So yeah, you see milah is so important that it even sets aside the halachos of Shabbos. Furthermore, again, the Gemara says, right, Chamura, Shadocha Shabbos HaChamura. So Rabbi Yeshua ben Karcha Omer, Gidola Milah, Shelo Nitna Lo Lemoshe HaTzadik Aleh Melo Shah. So we'll say, this is an incredible phrase. And we're going to see this story in tomorrow's daf. Milah is so great, Shelo Nitla, that judgment wasn't suspended against Moshe Rabbeinu, Melo Shah, even for a moment. So we'll say, we're going to see that Moshe Rabbeinu made a mistake. Well, we'll see. Moshe Rabbeinu seemingly made a mistake in terms of Bris Milah, and he was judged immediately, punished immediately for that mistake. Sorry. He was punished immediately for that mistake. So even the great Moshe Rabbeinu was punished immediately because of a mistake by Milah. Said, by the way, I will show you something absolutely amazing. If you notice, Moshe is referred to over here as Moshe HaTzadik. Moshe is never referred to as Moshe HaTzadik. Moshe Rabbeinu was referred to as Moshe Rabbeinu. We will see why is it dafka in the context of Bris Milah is Moshe not referred to as Moshe Rabbeinu, but rather referred to as Moshe HaTzadik. We'll see. So the Gemara says, Bris Milah is great. It's even dochet saras. I will say, what does that mean? So here's something interesting. The halach is like this. I will say, remember, saras means you have, right, we loosely translated as leprosy. Let's say you have a blemish that might be saras on your skin. And you say, you know what, I don't have time to deal with this. I'm just going to cut it off. You're not allowed to do that. I will say, so now what happens? Baby's 8 days old, little boy's 8 days old. You have to do bris milah. And let's say there is saras on the foreskin, on the arla. I will say, what's the halacha? You do milah anyway. Even though again there's a biblical prohibition to remove spots of saras before you have to go through the process, milah is so important that milah is dochet saras. It sets aside the halachos of leprosy of saras. Incredible. So the Gemara goes weiter. Rabbi Omer, Gedol milah shekala mitzvah she'asa Avraham Avinu lo nikra shalem ad shemo. Great is bris milah because Avraham Avinu, with all of the mitzvahs that he performed, he was not called complete. He was not called shalem until he performed the mitzvah of bris milah. Shnei amar his halech lefanai veyeh tamim. The pasuk Hashem says to Abraham, walk before me and be complete. So you see that Avraham Avinu was not considered to be complete until after the bris milah. Davar Acher, another possibility. Gedol milah she'ol malehi. Rabbi say, great is the mitzvah bris milah she'ol malehi, because without this mitzvah, la barak kadosh baruch hu es olamo. Rabbi say, without the mitzvah of milah, Hashem would have never created his world. Shnei amar ka amar Hashem im lo brisi yomam balayla chukos shamayim va'arez lo samti. So what's incredible? So here you have. So I just want to point out that just the incredible transition in the Mishnah. So we go ultimately again from Nedarim about Arelim and Mulim to full in discussion ultimately about the greatness of Bris Milah. Says the Gemara. Let's just do a line, then we'll stop. Tanya, Rabbi Yosef ben Karcha Omer, Gedol Milah shekol zechuyos she'asa Moshe Rabbeinu lo amdu lo kishen israshal min Milah. So we'll say, let's talk about this in just a moment, then we'll have to stop over here for today. We know the story. The truth is, it's one of the strangest stories. One of the strangest stories in the beginning of Shmos. Moshe Rabbeinu was on the way down to Mitzrayim with his family. And the Torah says, Vahi b'derech, right? Moshe Rabbeinu is on the road. Vayiv kasheu Hashem. The lashon over here is Vahi b'derech b'malon. He was on the way by his lodging. Vayiv kasheu Hashem met him. And was ready to kill him. Now, I will say, what's interesting is what's missing in this pasuk. What's missing in the pasuk is why is Hashem ready to kill Moshe Rabbeinu? So I will say, so that the pasuk does not indicate that to us at all. What we do know is the story ends with Tzipporah giving their son an emergency bris milah, which leads the Gemara to understand that Moshe Rabbeinu's run-in with HaKadosh Baruch Hu was about this. So you know what? We'll stop over here for today. We'll pick up with this dramatic Ma'aseh Meretz Hashem tomorrow. Shkoyach. All right, have a great day, everyone.